I'll never forget the night I left the microphone in the woods. It was supposed to be a simple test, just a routine check to see how well the system I had worked on for months could capture the sounds of nature. The VR film we were working on needed an authentic touch, and a true nature recording was the missing element. So, I thought, why not leave a special microphone by the edge of the forest overnight and let it record whatever came through? It was a perfect spot, isolated, peaceful, undisturbed. I knew it'd pick up the rustling of the trees, the whispers of nocturnal creatures, the sound of leaves swaying in the breeze. But what I heard when I reviewed the footage the next day, well, it shattered my world. The moment I hit play, I almost couldn't believe what I was hearing. My wife, Lauren's voice, was clear, unmistakable, but there was something strange in her tone. The sounds around her were sharp, like the cold, eerie silence of the night. It didn't sound like a casual conversation. It was deliberate, calculated, and my stomach sank as I heard her voice, cold as ice. We're done with him. His body is not cold yet. I froze. I couldn't move, couldn't think. I hit replay, and again, the same chilling words filled the room. I reached for the volume knob, cranking it up in disbelief. But there it was, as clear as day. My wife was talking to someone, a man I didn't recognize. I thought I might be hearing things. I stood there for a few more minutes, rewinding, re-listening, but every time, it was the same. Lauren, cold, detached, speaking to this stranger about me? A chill ran down my spine, my hands trembling as I shut off the recording. My thoughts raced. Who was she talking to? Why was she so calm? I told myself it was just some bizarre misunderstanding. Maybe it was a sound captured by accident. Maybe it was a trick of the night. But then, I thought of her. Lauren was always so careful about things. Never a hint of anything unusual in her behavior. And yet, this was something else entirely. When I got home, everything seemed normal. Lauren was in the kitchen, preparing breakfast, just like she always did in the mornings. She greeted me with a smile, as if nothing had happened. But I was different. My heart was hammering in my chest. I didn't know what to say to her. I couldn't say anything, at least, not yet. So I said nothing. I made my coffee, sat down at the table, and watched her like I had never watched her before. As she moved around the kitchen, humming softly, I wondered what was going through her mind. Was she hiding something? Was she pretending nothing was wrong? Or had I just imagined it all? I didn't know, but I was about to find out. That night, I did something I never thought I would. I installed hidden microphones in the house. Every room, every corner. I was going to listen, no matter what. And when she left for her friend's house the next evening, I stayed behind and listened. The recording that night was far worse than I could have imagined. Her voice came through first, low and careful. I'm not ready yet. He suspects something. And then, an unfamiliar, deep male voice responded. You'll have to act fast, Lauren. Time is running out. I didn't know what to think, but I knew one thing for sure. Something was wrong. Something was very, very wrong. The silence of the house after the recording ended was deafening. I sat there, staring at the playback, my mind spinning in circles. My heart was pounding, each beat like a drum in my ears. My wife, Lauren, was talking to someone I didn't know, someone who was involved in something far more sinister than I could have imagined. My first instinct was to confront her, to ask her what this was about, but I knew better than to act on impulse. I wasn't ready to face the truth yet. I needed more evidence. I needed to understand what was happening before I did something I might regret. For the next few days, I spent every moment when she wasn't around listening to the recordings. Each night, after Lauren would leave for her friend's house, I'd huddle in the dark, waiting for any new conversations to unfold. And each time, the recordings were more unsettling. Every word, every exchange between Lauren and the voice on the other end sent a shockwave through my body. There was nothing casual about it. They spoke in hushed tones, like they were trying to hide something, but they never seemed to care that I was listening. It was almost like they knew I was there all along, like I was part of their twisted game. One night, the voice was clearer than it had ever been. Lauren's tone was sharp, full of tension, and the other voice, a deep, guttural thing, sounded like it was right beside her, whispering words that made my blood run cold. You're running out of time, he said. He's getting closer to the truth. You need to do it before he figures it out. And then Lauren responded, a tone of calmness creeping back into her voice. I know what I'm doing. We just need a little more time. The Paranoia set in soon after. I started second-guessing everything. Every smile, every word, every gesture she made when we were together. Was she hiding something from me? Was this all some elaborate act? I couldn't get the thought out of my head. Lauren had always been a little secretive, but I never suspected she'd be capable of something like this. She was kind, loving, the kind of person who wouldn't hurt a fly. But now, I wasn't sure if I even knew who she was anymore. The next day, I took a step I hadn't planned on. I went to see an old friend of mine, Detective Ryan Harris. Ryan and I had grown up together. He'd gone into law enforcement, while I had taken a different path, working as a sound engineer. But we stayed in touch over the years. He was one of the few people I could trust completely, and when I showed him the recordings, his face paled. He'd known about the strange disappearances in the area, but hearing Lauren's voice talking to a man he'd never heard of, well, that shook him. He listened to the recording again, and then again, his eyes widening with every word. When the voice of the man came through, deep, unrecognizable, yet oddly familiar, Ryan froze. That voice. He muttered, more to himself than to me. It's Jared Collins. I blinked, not sure if I had heard him correctly. Jared Collins? The name didn't ring any bells at first, but then it hit me. Jared was a neighbor of ours from years ago. We'd lost touch with him after he'd disappeared without a trace. His disappearance had been one of those strange, unsolved cases that had lingered in the back of our minds. But life went on, and no one ever really talked about it. Lauren had never mentioned him, not once, and I never thought to ask. But now, Ryan was telling me that the man in the recording was Jared Collins, someone who was presumed dead 3 years ago. I felt a cold shiver run down my spine. How could Lauren have been involved with someone like him? And why had she never said anything? I tried to process what Ryan had just said, but my thoughts were a blur. I needed answers, and fast. But I had no idea where to start, where to go from here. All I knew was that I had to find out what had really happened to Jared, and why Lauren was so deeply involved in it. Ryan, sensing my urgency, offered to help. If we're going to figure this out, we need to do it carefully, he said, his voice low. We need to dig a little deeper, see where all of this leads. And with that, we made a plan. We were going to find out what had happened to Jared Collins, whether Lauren wanted us to or not. The next few days were a blur. Ryan and I had agreed to meet in secret. I couldn't risk Lauren finding out about the investigation. I didn't know if she would confront me, or worse, if she was already too far gone in whatever web of lies and manipulation she had woven around herself. Every interaction with her felt like a delicate balancing act, and the weight of suspicion hung heavy over everything. I couldn't help but notice how she seemed to be constantly looking over her shoulder when she thought I wasn't paying attention, like she was waiting for something, or someone, to catch up with her. But she never let on. She continued acting like everything was fine, like nothing had changed. But something had changed in me. I couldn't unhear the things I'd heard. I couldn't unsee the truth that was beginning to piece itself together in my mind, no matter how twisted it seemed. Ryan and I were both on edge, but we kept pushing forward. He had connections at the local police department, and one afternoon, he managed to get his hands on Jared Collins' old case file. We sat in his car, parked in the dark of an alley, while Ryan rifled through the papers. The case was bizarre, a real puzzle. Jared had vanished without a trace 3 years ago, just like so many other people in this quiet town. His family had never received any answers. No body, no ransom notes, just a trail of nothing. But in the report, Ryan found a few odd details that caught his attention, small things that had never made it into the media or official statements. The last person to see Jared before his disappearance had been Lauren. According to the witness reports, she had been at his house the day before he was last seen. It didn't say much beyond that, but the timing was eerie. What had Lauren been doing at his house? What had she told the neighbors? I could feel my pulse quicken. These weren't coincidences. There was something going on that I didn't understand yet, and it was starting to feel like it was all leading back to her. Ryan and I decided to take the next step. If Jared's body had never been found, maybe there was something we missed. Maybe there was more to the story that no one had bothered to dig into. I couldn't shake the feeling that we were getting closer to something dark and buried. So we made our way to the old cemetery where Jared's grave was located. It wasn't a long drive, just out of town, tucked away at the edge of the woods, the kind of place where families buried their loved ones and left them to rest in peace. But this wasn't a peaceful mission. We weren't there to pay our respects. We were there to uncover the truth. The ground was soft, freshly disturbed. It wasn't hard to find the grave. It had been marked just like all the others, but the soil above it had been dug up recently. The headstone was weathered, cracked from years of neglect. But when we looked closer, we noticed something strange. There were no signs of any recent burial. No new dirt had been added to cover the casket. The tombstone had been placed, but nothing had ever been buried beneath it. My heart raced. This was a grave without a body. Ryan and I worked quickly, using shovels to pull the dirt away. As the soil piled up beside the grave, we found the truth buried beneath layers of earth, something that sent a jolt of shock through me that I still can't describe. The casket was empty, but there was something else inside, something I wasn't prepared to see. At the bottom of the grave, in place of Jared's body, was a mannequin. Not a real person, not a decaying corpse. Just a mannequin, dressed in a suit and shoes, sitting upright in the grave like some twisted parody of a human being. I stumbled back, the air in my lungs suddenly thick and heavy. I felt like I was going to suffocate. It was as though someone had taken Jared's place and left the real man to vanish completely, as if he had never existed. Ryan stared at the mannequin in disbelief, his jaw clenched tight. But then, my eyes were drawn to something even more horrifying, a small, black voice recorder, wedged beneath the mannequin's feet. It was strange and out of place in this macabre scene. I picked it up, my hand shaking, and pressed the play button. The voice that came through was clear, too clear for my comfort. It was a low, mechanical sound, almost as though it was coming from deep inside a machine rather than a person. You can't trust a sound, the voice said, each word slow, deliberate. Even if it's the voice of a lover. The words hit me like a punch to the gut. I could barely process it, but I knew, deep down, that the voice was warning me. Warning me about the recordings I had been listening to. About Lauren. About everything that had been happening. I didn't know if I was supposed to believe what I was hearing, but at that moment, everything in my mind screamed that this was the truth, an ugly, twisted truth that I had been blind to for so long. The mannequin in the grave wasn't Jared. It wasn't a body at all. It was a symbol. A message. Ryan looked at me, his face pale, his hand shaking as he put the recorder back in the grave. "This is bigger than we thought," he said, his voice hoarse. I didn't know what to say. What could I say? All I knew was that I was knee-deep in a mystery that I didn't understand, and the more I uncovered, the more it seemed like I was just a pawn in someone's sick game. The question now wasn't about finding Jared anymore. It was about finding Lauren. And why in the hell? She was at the center of it all. The next morning, I didn't sleep. I couldn't. My mind was racing, tangled in a web of confusion, horror, and disbelief. Ryan and I had just unearthed something that no one could have predicted, not in a million years. Jared Collins wasn't dead. He was gone, erased, replaced by some faceless entity. His grave was a mockery, and the voice on the recorder, the one warning me not to trust what I heard, kept echoing in my mind. I couldn't make sense of it. If Jared wasn't dead, then where was he? Why had his disappearance been faked so perfectly, and what role had Lauren played in it? The questions were endless, and the answers seemed more elusive with every passing minute. I tried to focus, but everything felt like a blur. I had to confront Lauren. I had to know the truth. But as I walked through the house, I couldn't shake the feeling that she was watching me, studying me, waiting for the moment when I would figure it all out. I wasn't ready for that conversation. I knew deep down that once the truth came out, there would be no going back. She was still acting normal, just as she always did, and I was starting to wonder if this was all part of the plan. Was I supposed to discover this? Had everything been carefully orchestrated, down to the smallest detail? That evening, as I sat in the living room, I felt a strange sense of dread creep up my spine. I had just finished reviewing more of the recordings. Night after night, Lauren had been speaking with the same deep-voiced man. She had been planning something, and I was sure it wasn't something she wanted me to know. The air in the house felt thick with secrets, like it was closing in on me from every angle. I knew I couldn't sit on this any longer. I needed to confront her, but something stopped me. A new thought, a new theory had begun to form in the back of my mind. Maybe I wasn't just listening to a conversation between Lauren and some mysterious man. Maybe the voices I was hearing weren't real at all. What if they were somehow fabricated? What if I was being manipulated, fed a lie so cleverly constructed that it was indistinguishable from the truth? My mind raced as I realized the implications of this. The idea that the recordings weren't authentic, that someone had deliberately altered them, sent a chill through me. But then, it hit me. The voice recorder in Jared's grave, the one with the warning, hadn't been just a message to me. It had been a warning about the sound itself. What if the entire reality I thought I was living in, every piece of evidence I'd collected, was part of some larger plan to drive me mad? What if someone had been planting false sounds in my life, manipulating my perceptions until I was left doubting everything? I needed to test it. I needed to know if I was being played, if the recordings were as fake as they seemed. I took one of the microphones I had used during the test in the woods and placed it in the most unlikely spot, the kitchen. I didn't want to set it up in a place where Lauren would suspect something. The kitchen seemed safe, she spent most of her time there, and it was the one place where she never questioned my presence. I didn't know if the microphones I had placed around the house had been compromised or if I was simply being paranoid. But I couldn't trust anything anymore. Every sound felt like a lie. The next few days passed in eerie silence. Lauren didn't seem to notice anything was wrong, and I began to wonder if I was losing my mind. The recordings, when I played them back, were uneventful. There was no whispering in the dead of night. No secret conversations. The house was still, but that felt worse. The silence was suffocating. It was as if everything had fallen into place, perfectly still, almost as though it was waiting for something to happen. My nerves were on edge. I couldn't sleep. I couldn't eat. The absence of noise felt unnatural, like the calm before the storm. Then, one morning, just as I was beginning to lose hope, the phone rang. It was a package. I hadn't ordered anything. I wasn't expecting anything. I opened the door to find a small box on the porch. It had my name on it, but no return address. My stomach churned as I took it inside, the box small and unremarkable. I opened it with shaking hands. Inside was a pair of high-end headphones, the kind I had seen being used by professional sound engineers, the type of equipment I had been testing for months. I didn't understand. Why had someone sent them to me? The packaging was professional, as if they had come from a company. But when I saw the label AudioWorks, the future of sound, my blood ran cold. I had worked with that company. They were the ones who developed the microphone system I'd been testing for the VR film. But I hadn't ordered these headphones. No one had asked for my opinion on them. So why were they here? I plugged them in, unsure of what to expect, but when I pressed play, I immediately regretted it. The first sound I heard was my own voice. I froze. My heart skipped a beat. What was happening? How could this be? The voice on the headphones was unmistakable. It was mine, but it wasn't my voice as I remembered it. It was distorted, like it had been twisted by some unnatural force. And then, the words came through, cold and chilling. I killed her. I buried her deep. I felt like the floor had dropped out from beneath me. My breath caught in my throat. This was impossible. I had never said those words. I had never thought them. Yet here I was, listening to myself confess to something I couldn't comprehend. I ripped the headphones off, my hands shaking, my mind reeling. How could this be happening? Had someone been recording me without my knowledge? Had I somehow said those words and forgotten? Or was this yet another piece of the puzzle, another part of the elaborate scheme to make me question everything I thought I knew? The voice on the headphones wasn't just any confession. It was my confession. But I had no memory of it. I had no memory of killing anyone, especially not Lauren. Yet the words were clear. The reality they suggested was undeniable. I was being framed. But by who? And why? I could barely breathe as I sat there, staring at the headphones, the weight of the truth crashing down on me. There was no way out. Whatever had happened to me, whatever game was being played, I was the one at the center of it. And now, I didn't know if I could ever trust myself again. The next few days were a blur of confusion and mounting fear. I couldn't shake the sense that something was horribly wrong with the world I was living in, but every attempt to put the pieces together only deepened my paranoia. I couldn't trust the recordings, couldn't trust my own voice, couldn't even trust my own memory anymore. I had never killed anyone, least of all Lauren, but the headphones had made it sound so real, so indisputable. I knew I had to confront her, but there was a part of me, a deep, nagging part, that feared doing so might push me further into whatever twisted reality I had become trapped in. I had tried everything to find answers, but the more I uncovered, the more I felt like I was losing my grip on reality. I was becoming the very thing I feared most, a man who couldn't distinguish between truth and manipulation. I couldn't do it alone anymore. My mind was fraying at the edges, my thoughts scattered. So, I went to the one person I trusted, the one person who could help me make sense of everything, Ryan. He had been there from the beginning, and though the last few days had shaken us both, I needed him to help me find a way out. I met him at his office, but when I walked in, he didn't look like the same man. His eyes were hollow, his posture slumped like someone who had seen something he couldn't unsee. I noticed immediately that he had something in his hand, something small and wrapped in plain paper. He handed it to me without a word, and my heart sank. Inside was a small black notebook, the pages yellowed with age. I flipped through it, not fully understanding what I was seeing. It was a log, a diary of sorts, filled with strange notations and drawings. But it wasn't until I reached the last few pages that I saw something that made my blood run cold. A list of names, and next to each name, a single phrase. And in the middle of it all, written in bold, frantic handwriting, was my name, Matthew Stevens, the last one. I dropped the notebook in shock, my hands shaking. What did this mean? Who had written it? And why was my name on it? Ryan's face had turned pale, his lips barely moving as he spoke. I didn't know who else to turn to, Matthew. But I think you need to hear this. His voice was low, strained, and when I looked up, I saw the fear in his eyes. That company, AudioWorks, it's not just a company. It's something much darker. Jared Collins was part of it. He never disappeared. He became the mastermind behind all of this. The recordings, the voices, the manipulation. Ryan paused, swallowing hard, before continuing. I think they've been using you, Matthew. They've been feeding you fake recordings, controlling what you hear, and making you question everything. Your wife, your memories, even yourself. I couldn't process it at first. The idea that everything I had experienced, everything I thought I knew, could be a construct, an illusion designed to break me down, was too much to absorb. But as Ryan spoke, the pieces started to fall into place. Jared Collins hadn't disappeared. He had engineered everything. And Lauren had been a part of it from the start. She wasn't just some innocent bystander in this nightmare. She was complicit. But what had she been trying to hide? What had she been involved in all along? Ryan's words barely registered as my mind spiraled into chaos. The truth was a weight I could barely carry, and yet there was no escaping it. I had been unknowingly part of this experiment, a pawn in a much larger game. And Lauren, she had been playing her role perfectly. My heart clenched in my chest as I realized just how far she had gone to maintain the illusion. I had been so blind, so consumed by love, that I had missed all the signs. The quiet way she had hidden things from me, the coldness in her voice when she thought I wasn't listening. It had all been part of the act. She had never been the woman I thought she was. I didn't know what to do next. I wanted to confront her, to demand answers, but I was terrified. Terrified that everything I had come to know would crumble around me, leaving me with nothing but a shattered version of reality. But then, the phone rang. I didn't recognize the number. I almost ignored it, but something in me told me I couldn't. I picked up the phone, my hands trembling. Matthew. The voice on the other end said, cold and familiar. It was Lauren. I'm glad you finally figured it out. Her words sent a chill down my spine. But there's one thing you still don't understand. It's already too late. We've been waiting for you to break. Jared will be pleased. The line went dead before I could respond. I was left staring at the phone, my breath coming in ragged gasps. The realization hit me like a freight train. This wasn't over. It had never been over. The game they had been playing with me was just beginning, and now I was trapped, with no way to escape. My world had already crumbled. My wife was gone. The woman I thought I knew was nothing more than a puppet in a much larger, more terrifying scheme. And as I sat there, the weight of everything pressing down on me, I realized with terrifying clarity, there was no way out. I had been framed, manipulated, and now I was left with nothing but the fragments of a life that had never been mine to begin with. As I stood up, my mind reeling, I caught a glimpse of someone standing in the hallway. It wasn't Lauren. It wasn't anyone I recognized. It was a nurse. She was wearing a plain uniform, her expression unreadable as she passed me by. She glanced at me briefly and then whispered just loud enough for me to hear, "You did a great job recording that, Matthew." She was a great actress. Her words sent a shiver through me. I didn't know if I was still in control of my own mind, or if I had become part of the very illusion I had been trying to escape. But in that moment, I knew one thing for sure. I was never going to find the answers I was looking for. The truth was lost to me, buried under layers of deception and manipulation. I was trapped in a world that wasn't real, and I couldn't trust anyone, not even myself.